Letter to Curtis Yarvin, a reply to You Can Only Lose the Culture War. First of all, allow me to say that I do not agree with your classification of certain groups according to Tolkien fantasy. I think that actually those who you classify as, quote, hobbits, unquote, in fact see themselves as, quote, elves, unquote, and see your group as, quote, dwarves, unquote. Why dwarves? Well, let us count the ways. Dwarves are bearded, insular, grumpy, and tend not to get along with other groups. They hold long-standing racial grudges against the other races of Middle-earth. They are typically good with money and are noted for their vast hoards of treasure. They were conquered by other powers, who took their homes and scattered them to the corners of the earth in a diaspora, which provides Bilbo with the quest of helping the dwarves reclaim their ancestral home in The Hobbit. Thus is your entire framing on this issue simply incorrect. Rule by elves at first glance does not seem so bad. Rule by dwarves, however, seems slightly disturbing. Would anyone wish to have rulers who are as selfish, unduly proud, and stubborn as the dwarves? No, of course not. It would be terrible. However, in the spirit of your recent Substack post, I will humor you by using your framing. So, now that we have gotten a little bit of race quibbling out of the way, we can move on. Anyway, if only the, quote, hobbits, unquote, would just simply trust the, quote, dark elves, unquote, who were actually on their side. If only they would just trust the plan, because true Shire-loving patriots were actually in control. No, this is a mistake for the, quote, hobbits, unquote. A major lesson for, quote, hobbits, unquote, is that they cannot truly trust a member of another group when it comes to their destiny. Quote, hobbits, unquote, must learn to control their destiny with their own hands. And in fact, this is probably the greatest source of tension between, quote, elves, unquote, of any variety and, quote, hobbits, unquote. Quote, hobbits, unquote, typically hold the greatest resentment against, quote, elves, unquote, because they feel that their destiny currently is being determined by others, and they want to control their own future. Quote, hobbits, unquote, do wish to be left alone in Grill, but it is becoming rapidly apparent that they cannot do this, because, quote, high elves, unquote, will not leave them alone. He who does not rule is ruled over. This lesson, too, is becoming extremely apparent. There are many annoying things that, quote, high elves, unquote, do to the hobbits to maintain their power. They are importing orcs and Easterlings to the Shire so that the, quote, hobbits, unquote, will never be able to take control of their country or civilization, and will eventually have to play grievance politics like every other group in order to survive. This is a detestable outcome. So, my dear, quote, half-elvish, unquote, prince, what is this plan? Why do you not level with us the details? We, quote, hobbits, unquote, are in the process of making our own forms of cultural output which is in our own taste, and we are doing this largely without your help. This will grow naturally into something greater. So why do we need you exactly? In fact, the, quote, hobbits, unquote, and the Shire would largely be just fine on its own and free to develop in its own way if there were no, quote, elvish, unquote, intrigue in it at all. What is the difference between, quote, elvish, unquote, leadership and, quote, elvish, unquote, domination? We cannot trust a hope, for it is forsaken in these lands. The, quote, high elves, unquote, as a Brahmin priestly caste, will never willingly give up their power. This much is true. I personally am of the opinion that they will never willingly give up their power, even when threatened at sword point. The, quote, Hobbit, unquote, Kshatriya caste is very brave. We understand the realities of struggle and the cost that it will take in order to get what has been taken from us returned. We see that the current, quote, elvish, unquote, regime is weak and tottering, so it really just needs to be pushed at the correct moment, which possibly will come in 10 to 20 years or so. We really are just sick to death of, quote, elvish, unquote, nonsensical shenanigans and procedural manipulation. So, we are willing to pay that price, and we'll plunge the sword the moment we see mush. We refuse to continue attempting to untie the, quote, elvish, unquote, Gordian knot that we have in front of us as our task. It is folly. We must cut through it. It is not the only way, but it is our way. We desire this, for it is a just outcome to take back by force that which was stolen through trickery. Quote, elves, unquote, are tricksy. Quote, elves, unquote, are false. Your duty, if you will accept it, dear, quote, dark elf, unquote, prince, is to go to your people. Tell them what I have said. Tell them that they have 3 options. 1. Double down and suffer through ideological and racial conflict under conditions of force without limit. 2. Leave peacefully and go to the holy, undying lands. 3. Attempt more procedural manipulation, buy time, and eventually end up with options 1 or 2, with a possible, though unlikely, chance at a, quote, elvish, unquote, victory. But anyway, we have actually both misjudged the, quote, hobbits, unquote. Quote, hobbits, unquote, are in fact up to 50% Rohanian according to the demographic statistics. This even does not account for the genetic lineage of, quote, hobbits, unquote, as a, quote, Rohanian, unquote, people who migrated to the Shire from central Middle-earth 1500 years ago. They remain proud men of the West. Remember what happened the last time the, quote, elves, unquote, made the Rohanian kids angry? Don't make the Rohanian kids angry. 4th, and fear no darkness. Arise, arise, riders of Theoden. Spears shall be shaken, shields shall be splintered. A sword day, a red day, ere the sun rises. Ride, ride now. Ride, ride to ruin and the world's ending. 4th Eorlingus. It is in the interest of all to find a peaceful solution. If you liked this video, please like, share, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and be sure to check out findmyfriends.net to follow me in all of the places where I am present online, including my Substack account, where I am very prolific in writing. Thank you.